In Homestead, Florida, stands one of this generation's megalithic structures, built by a single man named Edward Leedskalnin. First in Florida City, he relocated the entire castle to Homestead, Florida, where he completed the work. Frequently compared to the pyramids at Giza, the heads of Easter Island, and Stonehenge, we look at Coral Castle. One giant question remains. How did he build this? The only first-hand accounts that we have of other people watching Ed work is only at night, where he has been said to sing to the stones that now make up what he called Rock Gate. Many of these single pieces of rock weigh over 1,000 tons, and the question remains, how did he do this? We explore this question among many other questions about the nature of our reality, hidden technology, mathematics, and the world energy grid. Come along with me on this journey as we look into just how Ed Leedskalnin created Coral Castle. Hello everyone, welcome to the Yissel Missile Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today we are covering part 19 of our deep dive into Edward Leedskalnin and his Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida. So today we're continuing our read-through of The Energy Grid by author Bruce L. Cathie. We covered chapters 10 and 11 last week. Today we'll be covering chapter 12, titled Tesla, the Forgotten Genius. So this will be about 18 pages. It's not too heavy on all of the mathematics today, but there will be some in here. I'm just going to get some of this audio going, and we'll be good to go. I hope you're all doing well today. We covered a lot, and actually last week on Thursday's deep dive of Bermuda Triangle, Homestead Air Force Base came up, and it's 4.8 miles away from Coral Castle. It's a 12-minute car ride away. Now, I'm not sure if it was built before or after Ed arrived at Homestead, but we should just keep that in mind, that he lived next to a base, a military base. Okay. So shall we start? Thanks for being here, Heavy. Okay, so chapter 12. Tesla, the Forgotten Genius. Someday I will harness Niagara Falls. The quote of Tesla. This was the statement made by the greatest electrical genius that ever lived to one of his fellow students in Budapest in 1882. Nikola Tesla, born July 9th, 1856, was then aged 25 and about to commence a lifetime career in the advancement of electrical knowledge, which was to transform the world. If it were not for this one man, almost all modern-day electrical devices would not exist. It therefore seems strange that Tesla's name is known to so very few students in our universities. Well, I'd say today he's a little more well known. This book's from the 80s. Alright. Many times I have mentioned Tesla to groups of students during discussions, and have been met with a blank stare and the question, who is Tesla? His birthplace was a small village called Smijan, spelled Smiijan, in the country now called Yugoslavia. His father was a minister in the local church. His mother was illiterate, but was known in the village as one who had a clever and inventive mind. It is said that she invented a considerable number of labor-saving devices which could be used in the home. In later years, Tesla stated that he inherited his inventive genius from his mother. In one stupendous lifetime, he gave us the whole foundation upon which to build the industrial empires of the world. It was he who invented the alternating current motors that power every factory and production center. He that designed the transmission systems that enabled power to be sent out over vast areas of countryside from a central generating source. The mass production systems and robot control that freed man from the slavery of labor. The basis for radio and radar and remote control by wireless. Modern lighting systems by use of high-frequency currents. The list is endless. No limit has been found to the electronic marvels which can be produced from the basic discoveries which issued from this one fertile mind. The whole world owes Tesla its future, and he has been forgotten because he was a man who lived before his time. Tesla was one of 5 children, and even at an early age showed signs of a lively mind. He found that in many things he could surpass other boys of his own age, and this tended to isolate him from his contemporaries. He found it hard to find others to share in his interests, and his intellectual attainments were often in advance of his years. Nevertheless, it seems that he still got up to all the other foolish escapades that young boys find to fill their time, myself included. One of the more dangerous ones was trying to emulate a bird. He discovered that when he breathed deeply, he began to feel very light and buoyant. He considered that this discovery, plus the application of daring and an old umbrella, should suffice to free him from the pull of gravity and allow him to sail through the air with a certain amount of grace and dignity. He climbed up the roof of a local barn with the trusty old umbrella, breathed a few deep breaths, and jumped off into space. The umbrella, not being aerodynamically designed, folded inside out, and Tesla carried out a very undignified plummet to the ground. This cost him 6 weeks in bed, and much embarrassment. His next accomplishment was the invention of a special frog-catching hook, which was immediately copied by all his friends, and helped to ensure the demise of most of the frogs in the village pond. Then followed a series of gadgets attractive to small boys, which included very efficient blowguns and pop guns, the size of small howitzers. Damage to local property caused the sudden end to the production of such warlike weapons, and punishment administered to the end of Tesla. He was spanked. At the advanced age of 9 years, he constructed his first motor. At 9 years old. The prime mover of this wondrous machine was a formation of 16 May bugs. I suppose in a way they could have been termed galley bugs, as they had to perform in much the same way as the galley slaves of old to produce forward movement to the parts of Tesla's machine. The design was quite ingenious. He glued two long, thin bits of wood together to form a cross, much like the arms of a windmill. Another thin spindle was attached to this with a very small pulley which was glued to it. This was connected by a belt made from cotton to a larger pulley on another thin spindle. The engines, or Maybugs, were then glued 4 abreast, facing forward, on each of the 4 arms. The poor bugs, no doubt dismayed at such cavalier treatment, beat their wings at panic speed and turned the windmill at a surprising rate. It was Tesla's intention to add more bugs, and thus more power to this truly remarkable machine. But a young friend decided to eat his jarful of spare bugs. Gross. This nearly caused Tesla to throw up, and he ended up destroying his invention in disgust. There's always someone to spoil something, right? The first stage of his schooling ended in 1870, when he was 14. The college he attended was called Real Gymnasium at Gospic, spelled Gospac. Already he was showing that he was well above the average in his abilities. He continued his studies at the higher Real Gymnasium, completing the full 4-year course in 3 years. It was at this time he became fascinated with physics and electrical experimentation, and made the decision to devote his life to electricity. His father was anxious for him to enter the ministry and make a career of the church, but finally relented and promised to Nicola that he would not prevent him from having his wish. The boy had overworked himself so much with his studies that he had weakened his body and been attacked, first by malaria, then a severe bout of cholera. When nearly at death's door, he whispered to his father, quote, "I will get well again if you will let me study electrical engineering." End quote. He was promised by his father that he would attend the most advanced engineering school in the world. Tesla was 19 when he began his studies in electrical engineering at the Polytechnic Institute in Graz, Austria. It was at the institute that particular insights into the mysteries of electricity by Tesla first began to show themselves. A professor, Poschel, was demonstrating a Graham machine that could be used as either a dynamo or a motor. It was run by direct current and suffered a great loss of efficiency due to sparking at the communicator. The communicator was necessary in all direct current machines to change the flow of electricity at the correct instant to obtain rotary motion. An argument developed between the professor and Tesla as to the design of the machine and the necessity to use direct current. Why cannot alternating current be used, suggests Tesla. This would eliminate the need for commutators. So I guess I mispronounced that before. It wasn't communicators. It's commutators. Commutators. And thus increase efficiency. The alternating current produced by the dynamos could be fed direct to the motors without the use of the reversing mechanisms. The professor set up a special set of experiments to prove to Tesla that his idea was completely impractical and made the statement, quote, "Mr. Tesla will accomplish great things, but he certainly will never do this. It would be equivalent to converting a steady pulling force like gravity into rotary effort. It is a perpetual motion scheme, an impossible idea." End quote. Tesla had no answer to this at the time, but instinct told him he was right and that someday in the future he would create such a machine. Hey Jay, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate the kind words. He says cool background and music. Yeah, we're vibing here tonight. He continued his studies at the University of Prague, concentrating on mathematics and physics. Always in the back of his mind was the idea of the alternating current motor, and in his imagination, he contemplated many different methods of building such a device, each time to fail. On leaving the university, Tesla obtained a position with the Central Telegraph Office in Budapest. His genius for invention was not long in being noticed, and in 1881 he was placed in charge of the new telephone exchange. It was while working for this company that he had the first flash of inspiration that was to rocket him to short-lived fame. He was walking with a friend late in the afternoon in the city park of Budapest. It was February 1882, and a glorious day. Tesla was in a particularly happy frame of mind, and gave vent to his joy by prancing about and reciting poetry. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and exclaimed, quote, watch me reverse it," end quote. He appeared to be in some kind of a trance, and his friend got quite alarmed at his antics, believing him to be ill. When Tesla finally calmed down, he said, quote, "No, you do not understand. I have solved the problem of my alternating current motor," end quote. He then explained how he could see the whole concept in front of him, as if in a vision. A rotating magnetic field which would clutch the armature of a motor with invisible fingers and cause it to rotate in harmony with it. a concept sublime in its simplicity. There and then, he drew a diagram of his motor in the snow to show his friend the technical aspects of his invention. This moment was the beginning of man's leap forward in the industrialization of the world. It was soon after this that Tesla was offered a position with the Continental Edison Company and spent much of his time improving the designs of the Edison direct current motors. He also invented a system for automatically regulating the dynamos. He had been promised a substantial fee for all the new inventions he had produced for the company, and when this was not forthcoming on demand, he immediately resigned. If the payment had been made at the time, Tesla would possibly have remained with the company, and they would have benefited immensely from his genius. It was suggested by a member of the company that Tesla should emigrate to the United States and work with Edison himself. There were not many opportunities left open to him in Europe, so in 1884, the young Tesla arrived in New York with 4 cents in his pocket and a mind bursting with new ideas. At this stage, he had already worked out the whole alternating current electrical system in his mind. This included step-up and step-down transformers for the most economical transmission of electric power, alternators, and alternating current motors to supply mechanical power. When he finally met the famous Edison, he gave him an enthusiastic description of his alternating current system, only to be told that he was, quote, wasting his time messing around with such things, end quote. Edison was committed to the direct current system and would not be swayed by the arguments put forth by Tesla. The whole of the Edison empire was built on the premise that direct current was superior to alternating current. He spent almost a year working for Edison, again improving and inventing new techniques for the production of the Edison dynamos. Promises had been made to him for the second time to repay him adequately for his services. It is said that Edison had undertaken to pay $50,000 to Tesla when all the improvements were completed and the machines ready for production. When the time came for settlement, Edison treated the whole thing as a joke, so the disillusioned Tesla once again resigned. And Edison's really turning out to be not that great of a person, is he? It was now 1885. The fortune he was seeking in the promised land was not to come easy. He spent a year taking any menial jobs he could find just to keep himself alive. At one stage, he even resorted to digging ditches. The foreman on the ditch digging project was fascinated by the visionary descriptions of the new electrical innovations that Tesla related to him and introduced him to an executive of the company named A.K. Brown. This man had enough faith to finance an experimental laboratory at 3335 South 5th Avenue in New York. Tesla set to work and in a short time had a complete demonstration of his system ready for assessment. Included were alternating current generators, motors, transformers, transmission lines, and lights. After examination by Professor W.A. Anthony of Cornell University, it was announced that the Tesla system was equal in efficiency to any of the best direct current machines then in production. So I would say Edison really saw Tesla as a threat. He went really out of his way to dismiss alternating current from what I've researched so far. It's not too great of a person here, Edison. In 1887, Tesla applied for full patent rights for all of his electrical inventions. This was not approved by the patent office, as they considered a single patent to cover such a great array of ideas was too unwieldy. They insisted that each important section be covered by a separate patent. Within the next 6 months, 7 USA patents were granted. And in 1888, 22 more were to follow. The Institute of Electrical Engineers were now aware of this genius among them and invited Tesla to give a demonstration lecture on his alternating current system in New York. This was a tremendous success. It was now recognized by the engineers of the world that there need be no limit to the transmission of power over long distances. The way was now open to develop the whole industry beyond men's wildest dreams. Tesla was 32 when he was approached by George Westinghouse, who offered him $1 million for all his alternating current patents, plus certain royalties. Tesla agreed, on the proviso that the royalty was to be $1 per horsepower. Although his royalty was later withdrawn because of financial difficulties in the Westinghouse empire, a bond of mutual trust remained between these two great men for the rest of their lives. Tesla, at last, was being given the credit he deserved. America was his to conquer. The General Electric Company, founded by the Edison interests, saw the writing on the wall, and for their very survival had to negotiate a license from Westinghouse to compete in the rapidly expanding electrical industry being built on the concepts of alternating current. No future remained for those who thought in terms of direct current only. In 1890, the scientist Lord Kelvin was appointed chairman of the International Niagara Commission, set up to determine the most efficient way of using the force of Niagara Falls to generate electricity. In 1892, Westinghouse won the contract for the installation of the 5,000 horsepower hydroelectric generators. The transmission system was contracted to the General Electric Company. The whole complex was designed according to the ideas of Tesla. The massive alternators with external revolving fields and internal stationary armatures were personally designed by him. The transmission line, including the step-up and step-down transformers, was constructed to Tesla's two-phase concept. His childhood dream had been fulfilled. He had harnessed the power of Niagara Falls. Now in his early 30s, Tesla was a wealthy man and felt free to devote more of his time to pure research. Throughout his life, he gave no indication of any type of business sense. The mere making of money was never a primary object with him, and as long as he had the necessary funds to buy all the equipment he needed for his experiments, he was happy. His whole makeup was that of the discoverer. He was at one with the environment itself, and had a compelling, restless urge to pry all the secrets from nature and harness them in order to help his fellow man progress towards a higher level of being. He had a vision of the cosmos as consisting of myriad octaves of electrical vibration. It was his desire to be able to understand the interplay of harmonic oscillations that formed the basis of the universe. The lower octaves he had already explored with his 60-cycle per second alternating current. He was now ready to reach into the unknown and probe into the regions of ultra-high frequency of light and beyond. For these experiments, he constructed a great range of electrical oscillators to produce high-frequency currents and coils tuned to set frequencies or wavelengths in order to discover the characteristics of each energy level and the particular uses to which could be applied. He found that the interlocking harmonics were similar to the musical scale, and that his coils responded not only to the transmissions of the original waveforms, but resonated at harmonic intervals above and below the original frequency. He had discovered the harmonic nature of matter. He felt ready to take the next step in the practical application of his theoretical discoveries. During an interview in 1894, he said, quote, "You will think me a dreamer and very far gone if I should tell you what I really hope for. But I can tell you that I look forward with absolute confidence to sending messages through the earth without any wires. I have also great hopes of transmitting electrical force in the same way, without waste. Concerning the transmission of messages through the earth, I have no hesitation in predicting success. I must first ascertain exactly how many vibrations to the second are caused by disturbing the mass of electricity which the earth contains. My machine for transmitting must vibrate as often to put itself in accord with the electricity in the earth." End quote. He had previously addressed a meeting of the National Electric Light Association and had said in part, quote, "I am becoming more and more convinced of the scheme. And though I know full well that the great majority of scientific men will not believe that such results can be practically and immediately realized, yet I think that all consider the developments in recent years by a number of workers to have been such as to encourage thought and experiment in this direction. My conviction has grown so strong that I no longer look upon the plan of energy or intelligence transmission as a mere theoretical possibility, but as a serious problem to electrical engineering, which must be carried out someday. We now know that electrical vibrations may be transmuted through a single conductor. Why then not try to avail ourselves of the earth for this purpose? We need not be frightened by the idea of instance. To the wary wanderer, counting the mileposts, the earth may appear very large, but to the happiest of all men, the astronomer who gazes at the heavens and by their standards judges the magnitude of our globe, it appears very small. And so I think it must seem to the electrician. For when he considers the speed with which an electrical disturbance is propagated through the earth, all his ideas of distance must completely vanish. A point of great importance would be first to know what is the capacity of the earth, and what charge does it contain if electrified. Though we have no evidence of a charged body existing in space without other oppositely electrified bodies being near, there is a fair probability that the earth is such a body. For whatever process it was separated, and this is the accepted view of its origin, it must have retained a charge, as occurs in all processes of mechanical separation. If we can ever ascertain at what period the earth's charge, when disturbed, oscillates with respect to an oppositely charged system or known circuit, we shall know a fact possible of the greatest importance to the welfare of the human race. I propose to seek the period by means of an electrical oscillator, or a source of alternating currents. One of the terminals of the source would be connected to the earth, as for instance, the city water mains, the other to an insulated body of large surface. It is possible that the outer conducting air strata, or free space, contain an opposite charge, and that, together with the earth, they form a condenser of large capacity. In such case, the period of vibration may be very low, and an alternating dynamo machine might serve for the purpose of the experiment. I would then transform the current to a potential as high as it would be found possible, and connect the ends of the high-tension secondary coil to the ground and to the insulated body. By varying the frequency of the currents and carefully observing the potential of the isolated body, and watching for the disturbance at various neighboring points of the Earth's surface, resonance might be detected. End quote. For the experiments, Tesla chose a site on the outskirts of the town of Colorado Springs, Colorado. To the present day, it has been thought that he selected this particular area just out of pure convenience. It was said that he was attracted by the dryness of the air, which made it an excellent position for electrical equipment. And in parentheses, it says violent electrical storms were common in the mountainous terrain around Colorado Springs and nearby Pikes Peak. End parentheses. I'm going to take a quick break from reading here. Good to see you all here in the chat. I appreciate y'all. All right, we got 5. No, not 5. Why did I say 5? We got 10 pages left. So let's get to it. A large barn-shaped structure was built on the site to Tesla's specifications. It was just on 100 feet square, with sides 25 feet high. The roof then sloped upward to a high peak in the center. A pyramid-shaped tower extended upward from the center peak for a height of about 80 feet, through which a mast was supported, reaching a height of around 200 feet. On top of the mast was a copper ball, 3 feet in diameter. A heavy-duty wire was run from this copper ball down the mast, then connected to the large secondary coil of the electrical apparatus in the shed. Power, which was supplied by a generator from the Colorado Springs Electric Power Company a few miles away, was fed into the transformer system and stepped up to around 30,000 volts. This was then fed into a condenser. When the condenser reached capacity, it discharged into a coil. This provided a continually oscillating high-frequency current. The primary coil was constructed of heavy wire on a circular fence-like arrangement about 75 feet in diameter. At the center, the secondary coil, about 10 feet in diameter, was wound with approximately 75 turns on a frame 10 feet high. This inner coil was attached to a copper plate buried deep in the ground at one end, and the other end connected to the copper ball at the top of the mast. The two coils were tuned perfectly with each other and created electrical resonances in the order of 100 million volts. The whole system acted as a gigantic electrical pump and enabled Tesla to cause massive discharges of energy to oscillate between the Earth and the surrounding atmosphere. During his experiments with this fantastic piece of equipment, he caused huge bolts of lightning to issue forth from the copper ball into the air, and man-made thunder to scare the living daylights out of the populace for miles around. He finally succeeded in burning out the generating plant at Colorado Springs due to the electrical overload placed upon it. This did not, of course, make him too popular with the local council, and he had to carry out extensive repairs to the plant before he was able to continue his work. He discovered that a rate of 150,000 oscillations a second, which produced electrical pulsations with a wavelength of 2,000 meters, was necessary to produce the effects he required in the transmission of usable power through the Earth. If we convert the wavelength of 2,000 meters to a minute of arc, or nautical mile equivalent on the Earth's surface, the result is 1.0792237. The experimental value was therefore very close to 1.08 minutes of arc, or 20,000th of the circumference of the Earth. 1/20,000th of the circumference of the Earth. (21,600 minutes divided by 1.08. The exact number of cycles to obtain a 1.08 minute wavelength would be 149,892.18 per second. This would tune the transmitter in harmony with the world grid system. In the early stages of my work, I wondered why I could not obtain pure harmonics from all my calculations when dealing with physical substance. That is, exactly 144 for the light harmonic, etc. Tesla stated that it was not possible to obtain pure resonance or harmonic vibrations, because if this were so, then matter itself would disintegrate. A certain amount of resistance must be followed to prevent complete destruction of physical substance. He tested his theory of power transmission by lighting 200 incandescent lamps at a distance of 26 miles from the laboratory while the giant oscillator was operating, the energy being extracted directly from the Earth. Each lamp required about 50 watts of power, a total of 13 horsepower. The claimed efficiency was 95%. The Century magazine ran an article in the June edition of 1900 stating comments made by Tesla regarding his Colorado experiments. Quote, "However extraordinary the results shown may appear, they are but trifling compared with those obtainable by apparatus designed on these same principles. I have produced electrical discharges, the actual path of which from end to end was probably more than 100 feet long, but it would not be difficult to reach lengths 100 times as great. I have produced electrical movements occurring at the rate of approximately 100,000 horsepower, but rates of 1, 5, or 10 million horsepower are easily practicable. In these experiments, effects were developed incomparably greater than ever produced by any human agencies, and yet these results are but an embryo of what is to be. End quote. Tesla now had all the information he required to set up a station to transmit power to any point in the world. But before we move on to discuss his later activities, let us have a closer look at the site he chose in Colorado, where he tested all his theories and found positive proof of the harmonic structure of nature. In one of his unpublished articles, he had stated in part that, quote, "Long ago he, man, recognized that all perceptible matter comes from a primary substance of attenuity beyond conception, filling all space, the akasa, or luminiferous ether, which is acted upon by the life-giving prana, or creative force, calling into existence in never-ending cycles all things and phenomena. The primary substance thrown into..." So this next sentence is all capitalized letters. "The primary substance thrown into infinitesimal whirls of prodigious velocity becomes gross matter, the force subsiding. The motion ceases and matter disappears, reverting to the primary substance." End quote. So that was very important to him to have it in all capital letters at the end. His experiments had shown him, as I had found in my own bumbling way, that matter was nothing more than a complex matrix of waveforms locked together by harmonic resonance. The energy inherent in matter could be tapped if the secret of the geometric structure of the waveforms could be broken. It appears that, by calculation, he had found that to tune in, so to speak, to this energy ball we call Earth, he had to set up his apparatus on a particular point on its surface to ensure that the waves he proposed to transmit were in step with the natural medium. Colorado Springs was one of his ideal positions, which was accessible to him. The position of Colorado Springs is given as 38 degrees, 50 minutes north latitude, and 104 degrees, 50 minutes west longitude. Calculations which have been carried out recently for this area show that a theoretical position of 38 degrees, 49 feet, 31.629 inches north latitude, and 104 degrees, 52 feet, 22 inches west longitude would be the ideal position to set up a Tesla-type experiment. The exact positions where Tesla built his transmitter is unknown to me, but I believe it was not too far from the theoretical one. During my years of research, I have discovered that some of the scientific establishments have been positioned in such a way that the latitude value sets up a harmonic due to the relative distance from the equator and the North or South Pole. Also have found that there are harmonic intervals above and below the normal units of degrees, minutes and seconds in circular measure. Division or multiplication is carried out by the harmonic value of 6. So, for the theoretical latitude position, we have the distance to the North Pole equals 51.174548 degrees. Distance from the equator equals 38.825453 degrees. The difference equals 12.349095 degrees. Divided by 6 equals 2.0581825 units. Multiplied by 2 equals 4.0 116365 units, and squared equals 16.9444 units. And I'll just show this here for all you to take notes if you're taking notes. The harmonic 169444 is related to mass, gravity, and communication, and is demonstrated many times in my later works. The method of calculation also follows a regular pattern. The great circle displacement between longitude 104 degrees, 52 feet, 22 inches west, and 90 degrees, 0 feet, 0 inches west at the same latitude also sets up an important harmonic. The value, 694.44 minutes of arc. This is the reciprocal harmonic of the grid speed of light. 144,000 minutes of arc per grid second in free space. Hey Texas Learning, good to see you here. Tesla must have been well aware of the importance of the position he chose, but kept the reasons a closely guarded secret. It is interesting to note that in this same area, the military have chosen to set up the greatest electrical complex in the world, the North American Defense Command, NORAD. I am not telling tales out of school here because other publications have already pointed this fact out. The caption on a photo of the command post in a publication which I have, free to any of the public who wish to buy one, states, quote, the main battle staff position in the Combat Operations Center, or the COC, at Headquarters North American Defense Command, or NORAD, in Colorado Springs, Colorado, fronts a display area which allows observers to see the positions of airborne objects thousands of miles away. NORAD and COC is hooked up to all of NORAD's subordinate units and to every major command post on the continent, end quote. I'm sure the Russians are also fully aware of the significance of this position and that they have similar military command posts set up on the Russian continent. So I am not releasing anything that could, in the remotest sense, be termed a military secret. From a public point of view, though, one of the reasons becomes clear why the work and the discoveries of Tesla remain suppressed. And this next part is in italics. The military application of his discoveries has been considered far more important than the welfare of the ordinary citizen of the world. Tesla was now ready to build his world power system. With a cash grant of $150,000 donated by the banker J.P. Morgan, he was able to commence construction of his world wireless power and broadcasting station. The site he picked for this station was to be on a tract of land owned by James S. Warden, a lawyer and banker. This was at Shoreham in Suffolk County, Long Island. Tesla's idea was to create a radio city from which information would be broadcast on all wavelengths. I find once more that far better than my own inadequate description of the system, the reported words of Tesla himself give more of an idea of the magnitude of the enterprise. All right. So we have another body of text here. It's all quote. Quote, the world system has resulted from a combination of several original discoveries made by the inventor in the course of long continued research and experimentation. It makes possible not only the instantaneous and precise wireless transmission of any kind of signals, messages, or characters to all parts of the world, but also the interconnection of the existing telegraph, telephone, and other signal stations without any change in their present equipment. By its means, for instance, a telephone subscriber here may call up any other subscriber on the globe. An inexpensive receiver, not bigger than a watch, will enable him to listen anywhere on land or sea to a speech delivered or music played in some other place, however distant. These examples are cited merely to give an idea of the possibilities of this great scientific advance, which annihilates distance and makes that perfect conductor, the Earth, available for all the innumerable purposes which human ingenuity has found for a line wire. One far-reaching result of this is that any device capable of being operated through one or more wires, at a distance obviously restricted, can likewise be activated without artificial conductors and with the same facility and accuracy at distances to which there are no limits other than those imposed by the physical dimensions of the globe. Thus, not only will entirely new fields for commercial exploitation be opened up by this ideal method of transmission, but the old ones vastly extended. The world system is based on the application of the following important inventions and discoveries. Number 1, the Tesla transformer. This apparatus is in the production of electrical vibrations, as revolutionary as gunpowder was in warfare. Currents many times stronger than any ever generated in the usual ways, and sparks over 100 feet long have been produced by the inventor with an instrument of this kind. Number 2, the magnifying transmitter. This is Tesla's best invention. A peculiar transformer specifically adapted to excite the Earth, which is in the transmission of the electrical energy what the telescope is in astronomical observation. By the use of this marvelous device, he has already set up electrical movements of greater intensity than those of lighting, and passed a current sufficient to the light more than 200 let me reread that. And passed a current sufficient to light more than 200 incandescent lamps around the globe. So it was able to light more than 200 lamps. I was just checking if this was still part of the quote, but it is not. So this list is by Bruce Cathie, the author here. Number 3, the Tesla wireless system. This system comprises a number of improvements and is the only means known for transmitting economically electrical energy to a distance without wires. Careful test and measurements in connection with an experimental station of great activity erected by the inventor in Colorado have demonstrated that power in any desired amount can be conveyed clear across the globe if necessary, with a loss not exceeding a few per cent. Number 4, the art of individualization. This invention of Tesla is to primitive tuning what refined language is to inarticulated expression. It makes possible the transmission of signals or messages absolutely secret and exclusive both an active and passive aspect that is non-interfering as well as non-interferable. Each signal is like an individual of unmistakable identity, and there is virtually no limit to the number of stations or instruments that can be simultaneously operated without the slightest mutual disturbance. Number 5, the terrestrial stationary waves. This wonderful discovery, popularly explained, means that the Earth is responsive to electrical vibrations of definite pitch, just as a tuning fork is to certain waves of sound. These particular electrical vibrations capable of powerfully exciting the globe lend themselves to innumerable uses of great importance commercially and in many other respects. I'm going to take a slight pause here again. We got 6 pages left. Hey Zenray, good to see you here in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Alright. Let's continue. The first world grid system power plant can be put into a... Alright, let me I needed to take a break so I could, like, catch up here. Hold on a second. These longer chapters really do a number on me. But it's all good. It's like different books read at different rates. But I think we're making good progress here. Alright, let's continue here. I'll reread what I just fumbled up here. The first world system power plant can be put in operation in 9 months. With this power plant, it will be practical to attain electrical activities up to 10 million horsepower. And it is designed to serve for as many technical achievements as are possible without undue expense. Among these, the following may be mentioned. And this is a list of 12 different uses. Number 1. Interconnection of the existing telegraph exchanges or offices all over the world. Number 2. Establishment of a secret and non-interferable government telegraph service. Number 3. Interconnection of all present telephone exchanges or offices all over the globe. Number 4. Universal distribution of general news by telegraph or telephone in connection with the press. Number 5. The establishment of a world system of intelligence transmission for exclusive private use. Number 6. Interconnection and operation of all stock tickers of the world. Number 7. Establishment of a world system of musical distribution, etc. Number 8. Universal registration of time by cheap clocks, indicating the time with astronomical precision and requiring no attention whatever. And those of you unaware, clocks used to have to be wound up and constantly monitored to make sure that they were running. Number 9. Facsimile transmission of type or handwritten characters, letters, checks, etc. Number 10, establishment of a universal marine service, enabling navigators of all ships to steer perfectly without compass to determine the exact location, hour, and speed to prevent collisions and disasters, etc. Number 11, inauguration of a system of world printing on land or sea. And number 12, reproduction anywhere in the world of photographic pictures and all kinds of drawings or records. It sounds like a lot of that is already available today. So I wonder, while reading this chapter, I've been wondering, is all this technology in use today and we're just being charged for it by these electric companies? Like, perhaps behind the scenes, they're generating all this free energy and they're charging for the providing of the service through wires to households. I'm really wondering if a lot of these companies do have the perpetual motion machines and they're generating free energy and they're just charging us for the distribution of it. Because that would make a little more sense. Alright, let's get back to the text here. The complex that Tesla planned to build on Long Island to bring all this to fruition was at that time like something out of some science fiction drama. The tower for the transmitter was constructed on a wide circular base from strong wooden beams, with all the necessary metal fittings produced from copper. It tapered towards the top and rose to a height of 154 feet. Surmounted upon this was a colossal hemispherical structure to form the electrode. The skeleton of this was also formed from wood and was to be sheathed in copper. Not far from the base of the tower was a large brick building designed to house all the intricate machinery necessary to generate the massive amount of power required to run the station. Most of the equipment was of special design, and Tesla had a great deal of trouble in having some of it manufactured. By 1902, the tower and the control building were completed. I apologize if you hear any rumblings. My stomach is really throwing a fit right now, and I don't know why. I did eat earlier. Just a lot of digestion going on. So if it's being picked up by the mic, I apologize. It sounds really loud to me. Alright. Soon after this, everything started to go wrong for Tesla. He had trouble getting supplies of equipment he required, and the financial backers, who up until then had been highly enthusiastic about the project, withdrew their support. The whole project crashed. A plan that Tesla had for creating a similar station at Niagara Falls for Canadian interests was also abandoned. He never fully recovered from this setback. He was never again to receive the money he needed to carry out large-scale experiments. The reasons for this were, and still are, veiled in mystery. And in 1943, he died alone in a hotel room in New York, a poor and almost forgotten man. That's a shame. This small resume of the life of Nikola Tesla does not give anything like the coverage of his achievement that it deserves. A large volume would have to be written to do anything like justice to this electrical genius who spent his life trying to give his fellow men a basis for a new and wonderful world. Why was he stopped? Would his dreams of a universal power system have allowed the poorer nations to advance too quickly? Could it be that the large international companies would have found it difficult to control such a system? I think that's more likely. Many questions, but no answers. I only hope that the students of the future will take time to study the works of Nikola Tesla and one day endeavor to complete his dream. The reason for the location of the transmitter of the world power system at Wardenclyffe in the Shoreham area of Long Island would also have been because of the geometrics involved. If the station were to operate at maximum efficiency, it had to be set up in a position that ensured the propagation of the electromagnetic waveforms was in perfect harmony with the atomic structure of the Earth. The electrons in every atom of every element had to be resonated in order to transmit the energy being imparted. During the First World War, the Wardenclyffe Tower was dynamited for some obscure reason, and most traces of Tesla's activity in the area completely obliterated. At the time of writing the initial draft for this chapter, I was unable to find the exact location of the tower site because of the scanty records left behind for public viewing. I did publish a theoretical position in my earlier works, which showed a series of harmonics, but was never really satisfied with the results. One of my readers in England decided to help me with the problem and wrote to a friend of his who lives on Long Island, asking if it were possible to pinpoint the site. He sent the results of his query on to me, and I quote a section of his letter. Quote, "I mentioned to my friend that you were unable to locate the site of Tesla's tower. Well, this produced an unexpected reaction from my friend because it is just around the corner from where she lives in the grounds of the Peerless Company." Peerless, P-E-E-R-L-E-S-S. In fact, the road that runs on the other side of the boundary fence, 50 yards from the octagonal concrete base, is called Tesla Street. Peerless replied that according to the Highways Department, presumably Suffolk County, the coordinates are as follows: 40 degrees, 56 feet, 50.3 inches north, and 72 degrees, 53 feet, 55.6 inches west. At last, a position was available for study, although I have not been able to check the accuracy. If any reader can supply more information, I would be most grateful. So here, I'll display the coordinates here. There we go. At last, a position was available for study, although I have not been able to check the accuracy. If any reader can supply more information, I would be most grateful. Computer calculations indicated that Tesla was in possession of knowledge far in advance of his time. If the position of the transmitter was near correct, then the geometric placement was directly related to the unified equations discovered in my work on the world grid system. The great circle displacement from the transmitter to a point on longitude 180 degrees, 0 feet, 0 inches at the same latitude was 269,375.57 seconds of arc. This was extremely close to the energy harmonic derived from the unified equation in relation to the speed of light at the Earth's surface found in my latest research. 269,364.5 harmonic. The difference of around 11 seconds of arc would give an error of about 800 feet, which is not too bad for normal map reference. See diagram. So I'll just show the diagram right now before we read about it. So this is saying 180 degrees longitude to 72 degrees, 53 feet, 55.6 inches west. All right. The longitudinal placement indicated that Tesla had chosen a position harmonically tuned to the reciprocal of the Greenwich meridian. An article published in the Arizona Republic on Sunday, September 2nd, 1984, regarding Tesla's experiments, contained some interesting information, which showed a relationship with grid harmonics. Quote, with a pocket-sized vibrator, he told reporters he could generate resonant tremors that could split the Earth in two. He gave its resonance frequency as 1 hour and 49 minutes. Whatever the plausibility of his Earth-splitting scheme, the rather precise estimate of the Earth's frequency turned out to be close to the mark, as was demonstrated during the Great Chilean Earthquake of 1960, when geophysicists were able to measure the time it took waves to travel back and forth through the Earth. End quote. I wondered just what time base the Earth frequency was based on, and after several calculations discovered that it was related directly with the yearly cycle of the Earth round the Sun of 365.25 days. One Earth year equals 365.25 days, which also equals 8,766 hours. 1 hour and 49 minutes equals 1.8166 hour. $8,766 divided by 1.1866 equals 4,825.3211, and the square root of 4,825.32 equals 69.464. In grid terms, the reciprocal harmonic of the speed of light, 144,000 minutes of arc per grid second in free space relative to the Earth's surface, is 69444444. If we work backwards from this harmonic value, then 69.444444 squared equals 4,822.5308, and then 8,766 divided by 4,822.5308 equals 1.8177178. And that amount of hours, 1.8177178, equals 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 03.7842 seconds. The results are so close that I would venture to say that the resonant frequency of the Earth is directly related to the speed of light. Another interesting point that I believe we should take note is that Tesla insisted that 60 cycles a second would be the most efficient frequency to use in all the alternators and motors produced from his patents. There was much opposition to this from the manufacturers and practical men in the field, but Tesla won his point, and to this day, 60 cycles a second is the frequency used in alternating current transmission. Why? It has been found that one of the basic natural frequencies of the Earth is 6 cycles per second. Tesla picked a harmonic of 6, which would be the most practical. 6 cycles a second equals 5.33333 cycles a grid second. It also equals 518,400 cycles for one revolution of the Earth, or 27 grid hours. And the square root of 518,400 equals 720, which also equals 1440 divided by 2, which also equals C over 2, or C divided by 2, harmonic. And that's the end of chapter 12 on Tesla. I'll show the math on screen here. This doesn't always want to come into focus here. There we go. So yeah, that's the end of chapter 12. We might be able to do 3 chapters next week. We got chapter 13, space communication. Chapter 14, where have all the flyers gone? And chapter 15, people we would like to know more about. And this will get back into the UFOs and aliens portion of this book. And we're getting close to all of the Coral Castle references in this book. I would say by the end of next month we'll be hitting that. It's near the end of the book. But if you'd like to see where we're at, we're already almost halfway through. So I'm pretty happy with our progress. After this book is Anti-Gravity and the World Grid. The one edited by David Hatcher Childress. And these are 2 books that were referenced in the original Coral Castle book that we started this series with. But I think we're doing really good on research here. Let me check the comments. Texas Learning says it does fit the character, Yissel. And Donna Zebel says, I agree. Again, Donna's my mom. So thank you, Mom, for watching. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. It's real cool. Zenray says, I had to erase my last comment because my voice to text does not work well. Yeah, it's alright, man. And Zenray says, I believe the street lamps in San Francisco run themselves off the old energy grid. However, I feel there's only pockets of this energy that survived the reset. Yeah. So you're talking about pre-Tesla, right, Zen? I assume that's what you mean by old world. The old energy grid. Okay. So, I'm gonna let you all know a little information before I head out of here. On Thursday, we are doing our continuation of the Bermuda Triangle series. That'll be at 6 p.m., just like tonight. Today's show started off on the wrong foot. I had no audio going, so I just ended up restarting the whole stream. I shut the stream down and started a second one. So if you got 2 notifications, that's why. Saturday is our final installment in the deep dive series of the Chicago film industry. Again, that's Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. That'll be part 15. That's the last in the series because we're finishing up that book. And there's not much else to cover. There's not much information out there about the Chicago film industry. Over 90% of the films have been lost, and that includes everything Edison was producing too. A lot of them were lost in Edison's company. But interesting, we talked about Edison here today and his relationship with Tesla not wanting to pay him, laughing about it. Edison was really cold-hearted. Something happened to him. One too many people took advantage of him with his inventions, and he thought that was the best recourse, was to just screw everyone else over. So that's unfortunate. But we found out a lot of the history of Tesla here today, especially his childhood. So I was surprised to read about that in today's chapter. But it gives credence to the fact that yes, he was indeed a living person. I've seen some theories talking about how he didn't even exist. But we have this information here. It might be fabricated, who knows? But I think I'll be leaning towards the side of this being accurate. And, I mean, his towers, the work he did in Colorado Springs, I think all of that lends to the fact that he did exist, and he wasn't just something made up by the powers to be. But you have to wonder how much Ed Leedskalnin went and researched Tesla, if he could at all. I'm sure he knew of him and what he was trying to experiment with, but we don't know how much he read up on Tesla or what he pursued regarding Tesla. But they're all dealing with this same concept here. So with that being said, we got one other show coming up on Sunday for Let's Talk. That'll be episode 12. I hope to see y'all there. And I've been trying to launch the Great Lakes Triangle Deep Dive series. I might get to it this week, because we're getting close to the end of the month here, and I wanted to get that started this month. That'll be available to members first. So that'll be one that I'll release to members only, and then over time it'll become available to the public as a premiere. And that's about it, really. Just make sure you're liking the videos, commenting, sharing. I have playlists that are in the descriptions and as well in the comments. I'm trying to make this as organized as I can over here. It takes multiple days to update all of the current deep dives with extra descriptions on it. I'm just reorganizing all the descriptions so that it's a little more navigational. But that'll do it for today. And we'll continue. We'll pick up next week, Tuesday, with the energy grid. And maybe we'll do 3 chapters next week. It'll just move things along a little faster. It'll be about another 20 pages. So, until the next one. Class dismissed.